Welcome back to this emergency edition of the Sabre Roundtable and post-trade deadline reaction, recap, whatever you want to call it. Folks, it is Friday night, March 7th. The NHL trade deadline has passed, and what a day it was for the Buffalo Sabres. They did not stand pat. They did not commit to really like a tank or like a sell-off. They didn't, they certainly didn't buy in. What they did today was begin building for next year.
It was a core shakeup. I mean, I don't think anybody is really expecting a trade that big to happen. Like there's no murmurs of that. There's no rumors. Like it kind of just happened, and it might be like more of a lateral move, but it's a big shakeup to the core and to the makeup of our team. I mean, he was one of the guys we invested early on, and now he's gone. So I mean, I think this is a big step in the right direction.
Can you really call this an emergency episode? We said we were going to record on Friday anyway.
We said if something happened.
If if the big trade didn't happen, we probably would not have recorded. There wasn't anything too notable.
If the biggest
I
news of the
guess.
day was Jason Zucker getting re-signed for 2 years, would we have really gotten together tonight?
No.
We got to celebrate. Come on. What are we
Well,
doing here?
once the Jokiharju trade went through, I mean,
Yeah.
dude, I needed that trade to be confirmed so bad. Like I just kept like, of course there was like that little bit of doubt. Darren
Took a
Dreger,
while.
like if they did it in time, and then we found out after the Jokiharju trade, the Aube-Kubel for Brannstrom trade, and that one got announced first. So I was like, oh no, like did
Mhm.
did they not get that off in time?
Like, did it fall through or did they just not get it off? But no,
Yeah.
the NHL's just they got one or two people working in the back office just like, what the hell is going on?
Why are they
Just
making
trying
so
to get all
many
these
trades
deals
today?
out.
I really did think it didn't go through. I just thought that would be a complete Sabres thing to do. But it literally the the return came in at 5:35, 2.5 hours after the
5:35,
deadline.
2.5 hours.
Yeah.
I'm still
Yeah.
confused by I've never before this year I never heard of the deadline's at 4, but like you can't make more
Deadline's
trades
at
after
3.
3. Like,
Because they're
but I
usually
don't.
done. They're usually not making many
I
of
Yeah.
them.
guess.
You think of the
Yeah.
last few years? I mean, what last year was Okposo and Erik Johnson on deadline day, and those were done earlier in the day. The year before that,
Hmm.
Greenway was pretty close to the end there, but
hmm
wasn't post deadline. So, and then before that, they made one trade. They traded Robert Hagg like 5 days in advance. So the
That's a
queue is
name.
not
Robert
the
Hagg.
queue has not exactly been utilized very often. And as someone who's always defended Adams in terms of like trade deadline activity, because he's been active aside from that Robert Hagg season, he's always made a bunch of trades. Uh, Today, I think really solidified that you say what you want about the offseason. The guy does stuff towards the trade deadline.
To wait a whole year like it's Christmas for this roster to get shaken up.
I think that's part of it too. Like, I think the three of us for the most part will agree he had a good trade deadline, at least towards the end. But I think it's a fact that no moves were made before that on why everybody, might not look as favorably upon this. Because we had a 13 game losing streak and we didn't make any moves, and we didn't make any moves until today. Like there wasn't a single notable trade. There was one AHL trade thrown in the middle of there somewhere. But today was the first day an actual trade happened.
He did get into the 13 game losing streak during the presser, but we'll save that.
So, without further ado, first of all, welcome back to another episode of the Sabre Roundtable. If you don't know already, and honestly, given the news of the day, I'm sure we're going to have a lot of listeners tuning in and maybe a lot of new listeners tuning in. So, if you don't know already, my name is Jonah,
I'm Christian.
And I'm JP.
and today we are breaking down what the Sabres did on deadline day and sort of a few days in advance. Let's start with the big one. Dylan Cozens is no longer a Buffalo Sabre.
Weird to hear, man.
Drafted by the organization back in 2019 after 5+ years of service, 5 years in the NHL at least. He has been dealt. Who has he been dealt to? Not to the Vancouver Canucks, not to the Detroit Red Wings, not to the Calgary Flames. Dylan Cozens is an Ottawa Senator.
It's out of nowhere, man. Did not see that one coming at all.
Yeah, I couldn't really Ottawa. Of all the Ottawa, they're doing a core shakeup with a team that's in a playoff spot. Really? That's the trade? And it's that's shock. That's not me being angry, happy, anything. That's me really? That's who they landed on? Just shocking stuff, really. I mean, just very nobody had this. Think about all the we've heard about Dylan Cozens trade rumors for a while now, and especially this season. You know, those teams that I listed off. Vancouver, Calgary, Detroit. He was almost traded to Detroit earlier in the season. Very, very close. Nobody had Ottawa. Not Kevin Weeks, who throws names at a dartboard, not the fourth period, who will link any and every team to a certain player. Nobody. And here we are. Dylan Cozens is he's an Ottawa Senator.
It just sounds weird to say, man. It sounds really, really weird.
Just it feels weird that it's in Division Two, and I mean to a similar team as us. You know, I mean obviously they're in a playoff race right now, but we've had similar rebuilds. You know, we've always compared, ourselves to them. It feels weird that it's to them. I don't know. Maybe it's just the shock factor, but it feels weird that we traded Cozens to Ottawa.
I got to get this out with the in division stuff because I'm sick of hearing about this narrative. You only play a team in your division. It's two more times than you play a team out west or at home. It's two more times. And anyone who's making that excuse who also is like, Kevin Adams doesn't do anything, you need to, you can't have your cake and eat it too. Can't be complaining about where the player's going if you're getting a quality player in return. I don't care that it's in division.
In division trades, that narrative has never really spoken to me. It's as long as you think you got better in the trade, who cares who it really goes to? You're worried about your own team. I know you should be worried about other teams as well, but your team comes first. It's the same conversation with the Bills and Chiefs, their trade in the draft. As long as you think you're getting better of the trade, then who cares? Make the trade.
Do you remember the Erik Karlsson saga? I mean, that was 5+ years ago now. But do you remember, Eugene Melnyk was dead set that Erik Karlsson was going to the West, and he went to the San Jose Sharks. And look, that trade has gone perfectly for the Ottawa Senators. They got Tim Stützle and, funny enough, Josh Norris out of the deal. But at the time, that was not looked upon favorably, and supposedly they had given up better offers in the East. I do not believe in that mentality whatsoever. Get the best offer available, and you just kind of have to trust that the Sabres did that in this scenario. But it's funny, you talk about that narrative, about being gun shy. That was said about the narrative about trading players in the division. It was said the Sabres were gun shy about not only, giving up players that are prominent on their team, because recent history, Ryan O'Reilly and obviously Jack Eichel and Sam Reinhart. It's just very funny to me that was the narrative. And here we are. Cozens goes to a team that nobody considered he was ever going to go to, and they're in the division. And honestly, on a before this season, we're in a similar tier to the Sabres.
Yeah, it also, I would say, it also feels weird. Scrolling Sens Twitter a little too. they like Josh Norris. Like Josh Norris was kind of a fan favorite. Um, that's why it seems even more weird. Like he really wasn't in the doghouse there either. Like the only issue that anybody has with him is his injury history, which makes complete sense. Um, but like it just feels weird, like you said, that they're in the playoff race and they're trading one of their core players.
Yeah, that much of a shakeup to the roster at that point in time is quite the decision.
And especially when it had to be brought up. The captain of the team, that is his best friend. He was teary about it in his press conference about it. Like you don't really want to upset the vibes in the locker room, and that's
such
your
a
captain.
that is such a bold move to pull off.
Hmm.
Like I get it from the Senators' perspective. They probably want to get rid of that contract. With the injury and history and whatnot. I maybe didn't like want to get rid of it so badly, but if the opportunity presented itself, like it did with Cozens, they wanted to do so. But man, in such a crucial year for your core, and I know if we have Senators fans listening in, which I'm sure we got a few. There's been a huge back and forth about whether or not Tkachuk wants to stay in Ottawa or not. Like they've been going back and forth. Like all the Spit and Chicklets guys keep reporting that he wants out, that he's available for trade. And I think that's, he's not available for trade. He's not asked out yet. But I do think, as somebody who, the three of us who went through this with their franchise player before, like you can only stomach so many years of losing. And I think, if the Sens miss this year, I think it could get interesting. But yeah, just seeing him in tears like that was kind of crazy and kind of speaks volumes as to what Josh Norris meant for that team.
Yeah.
Why don't we go over the trade itself? So the full trade, the Buffalo Sabres trade Dylan Cozens, Dennis Gilbert, and a 2026 second-round pick for Josh Norris and Jacob Bernard Docker. We've touched a lot on Cozens. Dennis Gilbert going is it's gonna stir up some stuff in the community, I'm sure. For obvious
point
reasons.
with a lot of fans.
It's funny that there's a lot of people out there that their qualms with this trade lie in giving up Dennis Gilbert.
Rip Gibby.
I find it kind of ridiculous. I know he's physical. He's a homegrown guy. But like, man, he's been healthy scratch for like half the games this year. Like he's not in the lineup that much. Even when he is playing, he's not playing that many minutes. So it's like, I don't get, like, it's kind of funny seeing the Gilbert glaze all over the timeline. And it's like, I was talking to someone and they were asking, okay, like what are his analytics look like? Like, is his defense at least good? His defense is putrid according to some models. His offense is all right, but it's like he doesn't really bring anything other than physicality.
He's a pure vibes guy, and I can't help but respect that.
He came here to do a job.
I don't dislike him. I like him. Like he did what exactly. Yeah.
He came here, played on the third pair, played 10-ish minutes a night. Honestly, a lot of nights less. Bang and crash, get in a few fights, stick up for the teammates, and he did that. He did that.
Mm-hmm.
He did his job. I have no ill will towards him. They never, Lindy Ruff never treated him any more than what he was. He was a third pairing, seventh defenseman guy. Ottawa might find value there. Personally, like the discourse, like I'm just kind of happy to be gone from that, just a little bit. But yeah, Dennis Gilbert, the body sent the other way, and the second round pick, a little weird. I thought it was interesting they had to send a second, but I guess that's kind of the price to pay for getting Josh Norris, who is probably at this moment in time, like he is the better player. It's not by much, but he's the better player, and they got a young right-handed defenseman. So I think that's kind of the second round pick purpose.
Who do you think has the higher ceiling from this point on?
All right, well, let's get into this. Let's get into the talk. This is all the fancy stuff floating around the two players. This is a 1-for-1 in disguise. This is
Hmm.
Josh Norris for Dylan Cozens. This is a hockey trade. Like people were calling this a hockey trade, and this is not a hockey trade. Hockey trades are 1-for-1. That should tell you like this is Norris for Cozens. As a Sabres fan, the higher ceiling is 100%. It's Dylan Cozens, like without a doubt. I mean, the guy, his career season is better than Josh Norris's, and he did that at a much younger age. Much had much better 5-on-5 impacts. And you take that into account, he's six, six what, 6'3", 6'4", has supposed two-way ability. It hasn't shown, but he's got the skating, the transition ability, all of that. Like he's got all the stuff that any team would want out of a top six center. And yeah, like the potential, it's 100% like in the court of Dylan Cozens. Now, that being said, potential is potential at the end of the day. We're talking about a player who has totally been on the downward trajectory for 2 straight seasons now,
Yeah.
without and his only excuse being that he got beat up in a fight last year. Like other than that, like there's really no reason for this. No reason for the drop off, no reason for the dips in production that we've seen. And like people say, it's Buffalo, it's whatever. Say what you want. Like there are still good players on the Buffalo Sabres. Tage Thompson has not been hurt by their struggles. Rasmus Dahlin certainly hasn't. Dylan Cozens has been one of the main reasons that this team has dipped in the standings since 22-23.
Hmm. And the Garnet Hathaway thing, I don't think people understand that he was riding the struggle bus before that fight happened. Like he had a dip in production already at that point. And he was, I don't know if he was just, just normal gameplay or just trying to juice the rest of his lines, but people use that as a turning point. I don't know if I agree with that completely.
Yeah, I mean it's it is sad to see him go because you watch that entire 22-23 season and it was like he was incredible. Like I think every Sabres fan thought he was going to be a legit number 2 center for us for years to come. I mean, my favorite memory ever at the Sabres arena is his overtime goal against the Islanders. And that will probably be like, until the Sabres are good again, that's probably going to be my favorite memory ever because that was just incredible.
God damn it, that's
But
so sad.
Dude, this is
yeah,
so sad. Can you believe that we're reminiscing about a year where we didn't even make the playoffs? We weren't even in the top half of the league.
that's all we got.
That's
But
literally all we have.
it's just the fall off has been, I mean, everybody knows it. He's just completely fallen off. No one really knows exactly why. It's not even like the lines really switched that much. Like he was good with the kids line in 22-23. He's been given his chances back and it just hasn't worked out. So his plays dipped and I hope he does turn around in Ottawa because he clearly needed a change. I think the only thing that I could say, and I think you could even say going back to last year, like I think he lost a lot of his confidence that he probably had in 22-23, and
Yeah.
maybe that is, all the losing piled onto it. I mean, he's talked about, expectations and wanting to bring this team to the playoffs, and maybe that did weigh down on him, but I don't think that should affect your play that much to the point where I mean, sometimes, some nights it was like you don't even want to see him out there. You don't even know what he's doing, to be honest. You just seem
Yeah.
lost.
Yeah. Dude, confidence is it's such a weird thing in the realm of hockey, but it's also such a important thing because it's almost like an intangible, but it's an intangible with weight behind it. Like people talk about, oh, he's got the stuff, he's got this, he's got that, and they don't really have any like weight behind those things. But when it comes to confidence, if you're riding the struggle bus and you know it, and you feel like you can't get anything going, it'll when it rains, it pours. It'll start pouring on you, and it's been raining on Dylan Cozens for about 2 years now.
It's
So
the
I
same
hope,
thing with UPL right now.
yeah, I agree. I mean, if you listen to the show long enough, I was a certified UPL hater for a long time, and I feel like I'm
Still
finally
are.
getting rectified.
Still are. It's okay to
But
own it.
But yeah, confidence is such a crazy thing, and I hope I don't hate Dylan Cousins. I mean, he's going to Ottawa, and every time the Sabres play the Senators, it's always a physical match, and I wish him nothing but the best. But when they're facing off against him, all bets are off.
Yeah. Sorry, I know you're meaning to say something, Jonah, but I do wonder if we made the playoffs that year, how his career might have changed. Because I just feel like after that season, you just saw his confidence, go take a big hit. Who knows? I mean, maybe it meant nothing, and maybe he was due for regression, and
I
maybe
guess, but
that style of play was just perfect for him that year. But it's
yeah,
just
but it
something.
wasn't a depressing miss. Like they missed, and
No, yeah,
they were totally confident heading into that next season. And like, yeah, I guess he was sort of on the struggle bus, but I actually just looked at it out of curiosity, like that season. From the point the season started to the Hathaway fight, there was only 11 games, but he had 7 points in those 11 games, so like pretty standard stuff. Um, I unfortunately like that's the only thing we can really look at in terms of like what went wrong with this guy. What physical, tangible thing turned Dylan Cousins and sent him into a downward spiral? I mean, the only other flashpoint, and I hate this, and I really do, is when he signed the contract. And like he wasn't bad. No, he was still very good down the stretch after he signed it. But that's the only other like turning point that there sort of was. Otherwise, you just have to say like I don't know, like his development just isn't linear.
Broke out the bag and he took a 2-year break.
I
That's
hate that
okay.
argument. I always do. I hate it. It's just you don't really have many other answers with this guy. I had my thoughts about him like coming into this season into this season. Like at points I said, he looked slower this year. I don't know if he uh bulked up and like, because you can really tell he he's playing more physical this year. And for a lot of people, like that's gonna be a plus. I know for the Canadian Ottawa media, that's absolutely a plus for them. They were talking about his fights a lot on TSN today, and I just don't like that's just yeah, sure, he's the workhorse from Whitehorse, but he's not that type of workhorse. Like he's the guy that's gonna outwork you, be a pain in the ass. He's not supposed to be a Tom Wilson or I don't even know. I just think I do wonder. I don't know if it was him. I don't know if it was the Sabres organization had to sit down with him at some point and said like, "This is the player we want you to mold yourself into," and he tried to do that. Whatever the case, I think he's a completely different player now than 22, 23. Not just in terms of player quality, but just how he plays. I mean, he was a transition beast for the
Hmm.
first 3 years of his career. And even a little, he was better last year. And I know after 222, 23, it's been the story for the Sabres. The league kind of figured them out or
Yep.
threw counters at them. And I'm sure a lot of that was placed on Cozens. But that version of Cozens just isn't what we see now. And um, I don't know. It's just he's changed a lot in those 2 years. And it's why we are where we are right now, where it's just he's basically just kind of like a finisher at this point, which
Hmm.
just was never like he was never that type of player. He was the
Well-rounded, very well-rounded.
giddy up and go, he's driving play.
Yep.
And it just feels like now a lot of his highlights, he's getting the puck in the slot and shooting the puck. I mean, like that's the one area of this game that I think has improved. I think his shot has improved immensely since he was a teenager, but man, it was just a very weird transformation from him from start to finish.
Dude, I can't believe that some of the Ottawa media was like he could take some of the fighting away from Brady Kachuk.
It's not who he
He
is.
like
It's not. He'll
do
get
you
in a
did, did
fight.
you
He'll
see
do it.
did you see his fight against Kotkaniemi? Any of them? Did any of them see that fight against him?
I have a question because it was, the video was inevitably going around today of his fight as a rookie against Ryan Lindgren. Aside from that fight, which he did very well in, I don't know if he's ever done well in a fight since. I don't think he
No.
has.
I don't think he's like outright won a fight since then. It's that might be some of the confidence there. You might think he's a little more hesitant. Like we obviously say he put on muscle over the summer. He's been bulking up. It's that mentality, you know. You know what's happened. He's got his face bashed in one time. It could really mess with your psyche.
I mean, I do wonder how much the Sabres could be to blame. I mean, how many times have we heard Kevin Adams say we want to be tougher to play against? So maybe, like Jonas said, they had to sit down with Cozens and they want him to change his game. So I don't know. I think the one interesting part about his development is at one point he was considered to be good defensively and a good two-way player. I mean, I'll always go back to when he was literally matching up with McDavid for that one season. I think it might have been his second year. But I feel
He
like
wasn't really a shutdown guy. That was
no,
like he was just outproducing them. That was
yeah,
the type of matchup center and that's why he's still is looked at as this two-way matchup center. And it's never been the case with him. Or at least not in the way you might think. He's not your shutdown guy. He is never. And that's one of the biggest flaws. Like no matter what changes he made to his game, you always said to yourself like, "Hey, he needs to take a step defensively." And it's never happened. And like when he was like, I remember that stretch. He played in a 3-game stretch. Sidney Crosby, Austin Matthews, Connor McDavid. The Sabres won 2 out of those 3 games. And the only one they didn't win was because Aaron Dell couldn't stop a beach ball that night. And in all 3 of those matchups, I don't think Crosby or McDavid had a point. And then I think Matthews was like held to an assist. And Cozens in basically his rookie season. I mean, it was a sophomore season, but second season in the league. Like, yeah, he's taken on those minutes, but he was just driving play better. So, I don't mean to cut you off there, but I think that's the type of misconception I think a lot of people have about him. Like that's not the player he is.
yeah. I was just gonna say he just his defensive game. If not, it's gotten worse, and he never took that step. And like you said, that's kind of the conception of his play. I mean, even when he was interviewed by Ottawa media, he was like, "Yeah, I think I play a strong two-way game." It's like, no offense, that doesn't really show.
It hasn't shown in
Um,
a while, no.
no, I think the one thing that I will always give credit, like I think he always did give his all. Like he is one to skate his ass off, even though sometimes you have no idea what he's doing out there because he just looks lost. Like he is always one who would show up and work his ass off, and he did have grit. He's not the big fighter like they're making him out to be for whatever reason, but he was. I mean, just look back on the few moments you look back on Cozens' career with the Sabres. It's the Islanders OT goal and the Winter Classic game or the Heritage Classic game. I mean,
Mhm.
and it's just hasn't taken any steps since, and he's taken steps back.
Feels like yesterday, but it also feels like a million years ago.
He's been a player for so long that has I've grown to dislike because of the struggles, because of all
Mhm.
those factors, and it really when you see those highlights sent out after he's traded, it's a done deal, and you do look back on yeah, man, he had a lot of good moments, and I know they were basically from a 2-season stretch, but yeah, man, it still hurts. It for a lot of people too. Like with this new era of Sabres, he's been one of the guys to latch onto for new
Mhm.
fans. There's a period. This is 5 years he's been on the team. A lot of people, this is gonna be their first 5 seasons playing, watching Sabres hockey, and he's gonna be one of the players that helped them fall in love. I mean, hell, JP and our sister. JP and I had
Oh, do you have to
long
break the news? No.
J, JP and I had, long travel hockey careers, and for myself, it stretched into college. Our sister went to a lot of those games. She didn't care at all about the game. She did not watch, and that certainly did not carry over to the Sabres. Never took an interest. But that Heritage Classic game, the Sabres iced the game, and Cozens in the last shift, last minute, goes and runs Matthews in the middle of the ice, fights Bunting, he gets kicked out. Uh, Helmet pops off, and our sister kind of fell in love with him, but it didn't just stop there. Like she became a big Sabres fan. Like is still right now like following the team. Like even with its struggles. Like sure, like maybe she's not watching day to day, but she was the last 2 seasons.
She
And
hasn't gone full sicko yet. She's getting there. She hasn't gone
dude,
full sicko.
bought his jersey, got that jersey signed, bought another Cozens jersey. Like there
Oh
are a
man.
lot of fans that are probably out there like that like grew to love this player, and it sucks. It sucks that it's gotten to this. Like when 2 years ago, like you thought this guy with Darlene, Tage, Power, like and him, like that was your core four. And here we are 2 years later, he's gone in a trade that like doesn't even get you excited. Like I get there's reasons to be excited, but it's
No,
not
come
like
on.
it's not like oh my god, like Cozens
Yeah.
traded for this, and this. Like you're trading him at a low point.
You were hoping for the Pedersen trade. I know. I know you were hoping
I
for the
was.
Pedersen
We'll get to it
trade.
later. We'll get to it later.
Yeah.
Did you guys have to break the news to her?
She's enough.
She did find out. Like I
Yeah,
said, like she follows the team now. Like
I'm
this
sure she
is-
hasn't left her room since she found out.
I have not. I have not talked to her today.
yeah.
Like in person. She
We gave her warnings early in this season that it looks like he might be traded at some point. She wasn't too happy, but I think she understood what was going to happen. It's not just her. Like I know some of her friends too. Like I think you're right. Like this new generation of Sabres fans fell in love with him. And, I mean, there's people out there who after the Heritage Classic game and how he performed, like they thought he could be a future captain of this team. I mean, he was an assistant captain, but some people thought he could be even more. And I didn't disagree. I mean, he's always been a leader. I think even when he was younger, like he was a leader, and it hurts. And especially like we make this trade, and it's like no one's even like really upset about it. Like it's like we knew it was coming at some point. I think that's what hurts the most is he had such a high, but it's gotten so bad that no one's even moved by him really moving, other than thinking about past memories.
no. I mean, Jesus, man. All three of us were in the building that night when he scored. Like all three of us were there. It's nuts. I can still remember
was
like
awesome.
I could
him
still
talking
remember that.
post game. Like he said he blacked out. Like the place was going ballistic, and it's like, fuck, man.
Yep.
Like here we are again. Like this is the first. Like you think about it. Like sure we had the Middlestat trade, but like this is the first big core trade since
Mhm.
2021, and like your first big core trade should not be that. They should not be close together. But like still, it's an old feeling, and it doesn't feel good, even if like we're ready to say goodbye.
Yeah. It truly is an end of an era. But he will be missed. And even if it wasn't good in the end, he was always loyal to the crest. So we thank him for his service.
I think before I get to my last point, it's funny that we've probably gone 40 minutes and we haven't even talked about the player we brought in yet. But before we officially move on from the Cousins era and probably don't talk about him much anymore, rip to the kids line. I mean, that line was it was electric for their prime. And I know all of us thought that line was going to be, the shit for years to come. And I mean, watching those three young players develop together and thrive together at one point, I mean, it was so exciting to watch. I mean, I remember might have been the preseason of the 22-23 year, or maybe it was very early in that first season when, you could just start them seeing them blossom together. I'll never forget they were going to line up in a face-off in our own zone. Jonah might remember this. I said to Jonah, I was like, it's just like they're all talking to each other as they're getting on the ice. It was like, I just feel like they're going to score right now. Like I feel like they're going to go down the ice and score, and they did that. Like that line was just, it was so fun to watch. And
What in the LeBron ass story was that?
I was there. I can attest. He did do it.
I called the goal. It was probably 20 seconds
I
later.
don't know if it was kid line. It was definitely
it was the,
it wasn't it. Wasn't that Paterka's like first NHL goal?
oh, I don't know if I called that.
I thought it was.
It was definitely at least Cousins and Paterka, but
Well,
I'm
that's
pretty
why
sure
I
it
say
was all
like
three
they
of
were
them.
out there.
Yeah, but it's unfortunate that two of those players' career paths have really veered in the wrong direction for
and
now.
the two that you thought were we're gonna
Yeah,
be the two.
seriously. So, yeah, it's an end of, an era with Cousins, and it's the end of the kids line era, because that was honestly the most identifiable probably line with the Sabres these past few years. We had the log line, which no one will ever forget the log line, and then we had the kids line. It's like we don't have one of those lines right now.
Hey, real ones remember the RKO Linsanity
Mhm.
run.
Okay, that's true. That was fun for a little.
We wish Dylan Cousins well. Unfortunately, he's an Ottawa Senator, so sorry, man. We're kind of preying on your team's downfall. I hope you do well, but not so well. Like, do worse than Josh Norris. You know, have a good career. Just don't have that great of one. And I hope you don't make the playoffs ever. No offense. It's just
Yeah.
just kind of how I'm wired.
Don't worry, it'll be this year. We'll
Yeah.
get it out of our system
Yeah.
this
I
year.
mean, they have a really good chance.
Yeah.
So, went over Cousins, went over Dennis Gilbert, even the second round pick. That's the Ottawa side of it. They are getting a player with the higher potential. Let's get into the other side of this. So, Dylan Cousins is not traded for. He was not used in a piece in a package to buy an Elias Pettersson. He wasn't sent out in a prospect skewed trade, such as like with Detroit, what it probably would have been, getting back someone like a Marco Casper or a Nate Danielson. Dylan Cousins was traded for a very similar center, and that is Josh Norris, the American who was drafted in 2017. He's 25 years old, previously the 19th overall pick with the San Jose Sharks. He was a part of that aforementioned Erik Karlsson trade back in 2019. Then now he finds himself a Buffalo Sabre. Initial thoughts when you saw his name being the main piece in this deal?
Initially, I thought it was more of like, again, it was a hockey trade. It was like a 1-for-1. I mean, I immediately went to like Puckpedia and wherever else to look up stats and points and games played and all that. And I mean, it seemed like a pretty even swap to me. I think I was more shell-shocked in the moment that Cousins was traded. I wasn't expecting it at the deadline, but when he was, I was scrambling to find information, and I kind of had to sit and absorb it for a little while because once the shock wears off, you're like, okay, was this a good deal? What do we think? I think the full package was it, I think it was a great deal for both sides. Um, but the only thing that worries me is Josh Norris's injury history. 3 shoulder surgeries on the same shoulder. But when he's healthy, he is on his game. And if they put him on the other side of the power play and you have Tage on one side, you have Norris on the other side, who's got an elite level one-timer, and then you got Darlene quarterbacking it. You could just hey, the Sabres have struggled on the power play. We told them you got to get someone into the middle to play the bumper. Who cares? No, we're firing from all angles. We're in the rock star zone now. But
I, I think my initial reaction was, I mean, I haven't heard too much about him this year, so I had a feeling, it wasn't going as well as maybe they were hoping. And it seems like maybe he could, use maybe a change of scenery too. Um, I know he is. I mean, it's weird because it's a lateral move. Basically, like their production is very similar. I mean, Norris scores more goals, but Cousins has more assists. But like they play very different games. Cousins more of the play driver, forechecker, a little more grit. Norris is more, the guy who has a good shot and plays more of a two-way game. And he is very good on the power play. I think like 30 of his 90 career goals are on the power play, and it's no secret that our power play sucks. So I think it addresses needs.
Shout out to the Charging Buffalo for grabbing this one. The highest power play goals for per 60 from an under 25 player since 2021. Number 1 is Austin Matthews. Number 2 is Kirill Kaprizov. Number 3 is Tage Thompson. Number 4 is Connor McDavid. Number 5 is Jason Robertson. And 6th in the NHL since is Josh Norris. So Sabres have 2 players in the top 6 goals for per 60 from under 25 players since 2021. It's not a coincidence that they're getting a player who specializes in an area like this. You look at these 2 players. It's like JP said, very similar career trajectories, sort of. Like each of them have one good season that they're kind of trying to replicate. Both got paid after those big seasons and haven't lived up to it. And, find themselves here on the struggle bus. That said, like JP said, they're very different players. Cozens ideally is the transition threat, more of a playmaker, not very defensively responsible, kind of specializes, is kind of more trusted on, I guess, the penalty kill more so than the power play. Josh Norris, on the other hand, isn't as great of a 5v5 producer, but scores a lot more goals, is more defensively responsible, better on the power play, and he actually does play on the penalty kill for Ottawa. But, these are different players, and I think that's why each team made this deal. Like, from the Ottawa perspective, they need goal scoring, 5v5 goal scoring. Like, that team is not going to struggle scoring goals on the power play. They're not. They need help at 5-on-5, and Cozens has a considerable amount of more of even strength points. Sabres, on the other hand, they're one of the best even strength scoring teams in the NHL. Number 2 in goals for per 60. They might have dipped. They probably have dipped on that stats, since this losing streak started, but they're pretty good at it. They need help on the power play. They need help, scoring more goals. They need help in their defensive zone more. They have different needs. Each team has different needs, and I think that's why, once you look at this deal more, like, this is why each team decided to do it.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Kevin's press conference a little more later, but he brought up in that, like, it's about figuring out, the puzzle pieces to this roster. And I think this is kind of showing of what he might be looking for, someone who can fit a need more. Like, we need power play help. He went and got a power play guy. We needed someone who could help more defensively and play more of a 200-foot game, when it's no secret. Probably the biggest reason we're not good this year is our defensive zone coverage sucks. Norris, he's more of a 200-foot player. So I think we got a guy that fills some needs on our team.
There's the injury history. It's not great. It's really not. Christian said 3 shoulder surgeries. I think the 22-23 season, when he only played 8 games, I think he had a shoulder surgery in the summer, and then 8 games in, or however many games in, like, he re-injured it on a face-off.
I remember talking about that on this podcast. It's coming back to me. I remember that.
It's kind of scary. And he's on pace to play the most games of his career this season, which with that premise, good. Problem is, he's never played more than 66 games. Bad. Very bad.
Give me to mid-70s to be comfortable. Everybody gets hurt sometimes. You're out a few games, bumps, bruises, illness. Apparently there's something going through the Sabres locker room right now that is just hemorrhaging everyone. So illness is a real thing, but give me like average it out like mid-70s for his games played. I'd be happy with that. That's a tall top. That's a tall task to ask for, but hopefully.
It reminds me so much of the same discourse that we had last year with the Mets for Byram trade, because
eerily familiar. Like,
it was another 1-for-1 trade.
Potential
and the only
versus
really
established.
downfall. Yeah, and the big downfall with Byram was his injury history with his concussions.
Yeah, no, it's true. and like that hasn't, luckily that hasn't been an issue. And you kind of hope for the same thing here. Um, speaking on more of like filling in the puzzle pieces, it's not a stat I put much stock into, but I'm sure they put a little bit into it. Um, by year, Josh Norris's face-off percentage, 61%. That was only through 3 games. His rookie season, 52%, 51%, 57.9%, 52%, and this season, 53.8. That's a really good percent. Like not one down year. Even like his best, like his second best year was his rookie season. It's something I'm sure they looked at, and we know the Sabres have struggled with it. Problem is they did trade the one guy who was improving.
Yeah, I think it is. I think that probably played a little bit into it. Because I mean, if you think about it now, with how Cozens, hasn't been put in any high leverage situations recently, to take a face off, right now you got either Krebs out there who's then getting off the ice like right away, or you got McLeod who, we all love him. He's very good, but he probably shouldn't be out there in the high leverage minutes. Now you have someone that can, hopefully take the face offs, win them, and stay out there and do something.
Yep.
It was very interesting. Models are very split on him, like very, very split. You have, I'll start with like Jay Fresh's model. Grades out as a 77 percentile player. Pretty good. But if you know that model, if you're a strong finisher, you're going to be in one of the higher percentiles. And Norris is a 95th percentile finisher. Same goes for Evolving Hockey. This season, he's a 66th percentile player overall. And though that their model skews heavily in terms of WAR and GAR. So you look at those, and then on the other hand, you have like like Michael McCurdy's. He grades out as like a fourth line level player in that model. Which bit of an exaggeration, obviously, but it speaks to like how the impacts aside from the goal scoring have left a little bit to be desired. It's very interesting to see the split on that, and I think it's why like I needed time to like digest this trade.
Mm-hmm.
But sitting, thinking about it, now we're here talking through it. It's obvious why the Sabres did this, and it's not the trade I think we imagined it would be, but it's the trade we were dealt, and there's upside here. There is.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be interesting. First of all, it's going to be interesting to see who they pair him with. That's the other thing. Like you look at, Jay Fresh's model. It's high on him, but at the same time, skewed by finishing. Take a look at his micro stats. Guy's not a playmaker whatsoever. The guy is in the first percentile of primary assists, fifth percentile in zone shot assists. Not a great playmaker. So now, with what with the roster you have, now it's going to be about like how can we maximize this player? How can we best set up Josh Norris, so that he can score more goals? I haven't taken a look. I'll actually probably take a look right now at like who he played the most time with in Ottawa. My guess is that he's mostly spent time with like Drake Batherson, Claude Giroux maybe. Like he probably hasn't spent a ton of time with Brady Tkachuk and obviously not Tim Stützle. So now it's going to be interesting to see how they balance the lines now.
I mean, to wrap this up, I think it was a great trade for both sides. I think both sides got value out of this play. The player they're getting, both have upside. Hopefully it works out for both of us. But in the end, it really is the end of an era. I feel like I'm still coming to grips with it, but you got to move on. It's a fast moving league,
I think it's really interesting, like Jonah said, what it does to the lineup. Especially since he is a center. Because I mean, right now, if you think of the centers we got on the roster, you can throw Tage in there, even though he's been playing wing recently. Kulik, now Norris, McLeod, and Krebs is our fourth liner right now.
Hmm.
Um, it's interesting because with this move, it makes me wonder, does Tage maybe stick on the wing or do they move Kulik to the wing? Because only two of those guys, at the end of the day, can be the center. Um, and prior to us trading Cozens, I mean, Kulik was held in a higher regard. So if you were going into the next season and you didn't trade a single thing, you'd probably have Kulik as your number two center, assuming, you somehow upgraded number one or Tage went back to center. You probably had Kulik at number two. Now it's like Norris is your second line center. That will not change. What do they do with, Tage and Kulik? Like who stays at center? Who moves the wing? Maybe this Tage to the wing, with this move, it cements that even more. But at the same time, I don't know if you really have a number one center other than Tage. It'll be interesting to see how they construct the lineup with it. I'll put it at that.
I really don't think Kulik should be penciled in as the number one center going into next season. I think it's just a plan I feel like it'll just go south quick. I mean, not to say he's been bad at all, but going into last season, what was our narrative going in? Well, you got to hope for a bounce back from Cozens and Quinn, and you got to hope the young guys take a step. You can't have that mentality again. So honestly, I think you put Tage back at center. And you got to make another big swing. I'm banking on another big move being made this offseason because then you have really difficult lineup decisions to make to see who's getting scratched, who's playing down the lineup. And honestly, injuries happen. I think these guys, the bottom guys are going to cycle in and out. Third line is going to be changing a lot. So I think everyone's going to get their fair share of opportunity, and I just there's got to be more moves made. This cannot be the only move made. I do not want to see Kulik penciled in as the number one center going into the season.
I don't disagree. I don't think he should just automatically be penciled in. It's just I don't know, what other choice you might have with how our roster is constructed right now. Because
Yeah, it's all speculation.
Kulik really hasn't been as good on the wing. He's better as a center. Where Tage has shown he's good on the wing. So I don't know. Maybe Norris plays with Tage. Maybe that will work out. And maybe, Kulik is then the second line center, and that works out even more. But how it's constructed right now, or at least how the lines are, formed right now, it puts us in an interesting spot.
It's interesting to look at a lot of mock lineups have been sent out today, just of next season. Inevitably, this is a move for next year.
Mm-hmm.
So I think like we're where I'm at right now. Yeah, Kulik's been great at center. You can't have him as your first line center. So okay, you put Tage Thompson there. You can't really put him at second line center. I was reading through a lot of Ottawa tweets today. I don't think he ever played wing there. So he's not your second line center. And I guess you could maybe alternate him, put Ryan McLeod on the wing, whatever. But I feel like his only path to the top six is if he's a winger. Now look, that can change. Lines change in the season. Lindy Ruff has a line he knows works in Peterka, Kulik, Thompson. Makes the lineup way more flexible. But, I think when you're penciling in next season's lineup, it's your center spine is Tage, it's Norris, it's McLeod. And I think you go from there. And I think, I think your duo, Don Granato played this team in duos. It was Lindy Ruff. At the start of the season, he tried to keep duos together. It was Tage and Peterka, it was Cozens and Tuck, and it was McLeod and I think Greenway That was like those were the duos on the team. And I think, those basically stay the same for now. I think, you keep Paterka with Thompson. They play their best hockey when they're together. I think Tuck is a good playmaker that can help, because I looked at natural stat trick as I expected. Drake Batherson is the teammate he's spent the most amount of time with, at least dating back to 2022, 2023. Number 2 was Brady Tkachuk. I was actually surprised by that. I don't know why. I've always envisioned he's played most of his time with Stützle, but he played a lot of time with Norris as well. So, that's a strong forechecker that I'm sure helped Norris accumulate a lot of his goals. So I think Tuck obviously has that forechecking ability, and he's a good playmaker. So I think that from there it becomes, how do you fill in the rest of these lines? And I think when you're penciling in next season, I think you throw maybe Kulik on that left wing, or maybe it's Zach Benson. I don't know. In my mind, now that Cozens is gone and Jordan Greenway's been locked up and Jason Zucker's been locked up, and especially now that Dylan Cozens has been traded and he was a better playmaker than Josh Norris. He had playmaking ability. This team sorely lacks the playmaker that they need. Nobody on this team is a pure playmaker. They traded that away with Casey Middlestat. Now Dylan Cozens is gone and traded him for a higher end shooting talent with Josh Norris. It's a big need of this team. And it's why I tweeted out today, like, when we get to the offseason and if Mitch Marner hits the market, Kev, if you're going to tell us that there has been no financial restraints at all, Mitch Marner, it just checks so many goddamn boxes. It does. It's what they need. It's like that type of playmaker. And now that Cozens is gone, honestly, they're starting to come a bit short on right shot forwards. You've got Alex Tuck, you've got Tage Thompson, and you've got Jack Quinn. And who knows what happens with Jack Quinn this offseason. You're kind of starting to, run a little bit short. So we're jumping way ahead. It's going to be a conversation as we get to the offseason. And look, he might not even hit the open market. But I think looking at, when Kevin Adams says building that puzzle, it's interesting that they traded away a better playmaking forward for one that just isn't good at it. That's a big part of this puzzle. Paterka's a good playmaker. Tuck's a good playmaker. Tage is a good playmaker. But unless like Zach Benson really takes a step, which he could, they miss, or not miss. They don't have that type of player.
Yeah. Going into next year, I think you need to make a top 6 edition. I think right now you could pencil in pretty much 5 guys in the top 6. Tage, Paterka, Tuck, Norris now, and I think you probably pencil Kulik in the top 6 somewhere. I don't think anybody else really fits that need. Like, I know Jonah's alluding to Benson. I mean, that would just be a huge step for him. I don't know if he's going to make that. Quinn is not the player who we hoped would be. Maybe Quinn's weird. Like, I feel like I could see them giving him another chance, maybe with a full off season. But at the same time,
I just don't know where you put him.
I agree.
With Zucker and Greenway, like, okay, I like the guy. He's had a phenomenal season. But if you pencil in Jason Zucker into your top 6 and like put Jack Quinn on that third line, I don't know, man. I would have rather you traded Zucker away and look for a better top 6 addition. I don't know, because that's another guy who's not a playmaker in your top 6. So, I just, with Jack Quinn, I just don't really see how they bring him back, in all honesty.
Yeah. I don't think Kevin Adams is in the position to be giving guys any more runway. He's running out of time. He's got this is his last off season if they don't make the playoffs next year.
I mean, Jack Quinn is just kind of like he's like Dylan Cousins without the big contract, and a much lower peak, but he was very, very good in 22-23 and was hurt for almost all of last year, and now here we are. He's a shell of himself, and you can only, that's a more like tangible, like we recognize, I think, why he's not good right now. It probably is that injury stuff.
Hmm.
So I just don't think when I look at it, I just don't know how you can bring him back.
You
Yeah,
don't.
I'm already finding this. I'm already looking forward to this offseason just because I feel like they will do a little more court shakeup. But it's like you got five guys locked in your top six. Your third line is basically it. It should be locked up. It's McLeod, Zucker, and Greenway. Fourth line, I mean, whatever. We'll make some moves there, but you know you gotta make one more addition. Kevin, I don't think he's done. He said, conversations that may have been going on, they can continue into the offseason. They still need to make one more move to that top nine.
So that's Josh Norris. That's, kind of what the Sabres are overall getting from, the main piece in this trade, the trade that the guy that they wanted in this deal. I'm really interested to know like how quickly this picked up. Sure, we knew Cozens was in conversations for a while, but like how long did they want a guy like Josh Norris? Like Kevin Adams said in his press conference that it was always going to be a hockey trade. I don't know. That's kind of just straight up false because we know they put an offer on the table for Pedersen that was not a hockey trade. But I don't
He
know.
said
Makes you think.
he's been watching Norris and that, it wasn't just today and that, conversations were ongoing. But obviously either it wasn't leaked or nobody heard about it. So who knows? Kevin could just be saying that, but I would assume he was at least, following Norris for the last week or two at the very least.
All right. There is one more piece to this trade that um, we have not brought up. That is the defenseman, the body that the Sabres got back in this deal. Jacob Bernard Docker, 24-year-old, 6'1", right-handed defenseman, first round pick back in 2018, 26th overall by the Senators. Interesting throw into this deal. So 23-24 was his first, it was his rookie season, his first long extended look with the Senators. Only played 5 games back in 2021, 8 games in 2021-22, and then 19 in 22-23 before getting that extended tryout. Only playing 25 games this year due to injury. And last season, 4 goals, 10 assists, 14 points in those 72 games. And this season, in 25 games, 1 goal, 3 assists for 4 points. Given what happened later in the day, Henri Jokiharju sent out. It's pretty clear that the Sabres wanted another right-hand shot defenseman to kind of supplement that, another name to throw in that defensive mix. And it's going to be interesting to see what they do with him. My gut feel is that to start, I think they're going to play him with Owen Power. That's what I would do personally.
There's 20 games left in this season, and it is over. You put him with Owen Power, even
See
if it's
what
for
the hell
half
he
the
can do.
games. Yeah, see what the hell you can get out of it. Like this time in the season, I mean, I'm all for like obviously they made an emergency call up today with the illnesses, the Isaac Rosen and some other guy I can't remember. His name is escaping me.
Josh
Um,
Doon.
Josh Dunn, whatever. Um, without messing with Rochester's playoff run, like I'm all for just calling up whoever, seeing what they could do. Just this is tryout time now. This is a 20 game period of tryouts.
Yeah, I think looking at, I think I only saw him in a model or two. Bernard Docker's analytics. It seems like, he's a low event guy, above average defensively, below average offensively. So to me, he kind of seems like, you know, kind of an opposite of Yoki. Yoki, I guess, kind of had more offense prowess, and he really wasn't that good defensively. So I think it's a change up of what they have as probably a bottom pair right-handed defenseman, who can maybe slot in with power for now. But I think it's interesting. I mean, he's young, former first round pick. Played 72 games last year. I don't think it's nothing. I don't think he was just like a throw in. Like I think you can more label Gilbert as a throw in, where I think Bernard Docker is at least, a top six defenseman, I would assume on most teams.
Like JP said, low event defenseman. Um, looking at evolving hockey's data on the whole season, in terms of expected goals against per 60, he's fifth on the team for the entire season, which is what you want from your third pair guy. I'm not saying that if he's playing with Owen Power that those numbers are gonna translate. I mean, of Ottawa's defensemen, I'm trying to see like average ice time per game. He only averages 13 minutes per game, so your average third pair minutes. But looking at his RAPM chart, pretty impressive. Goals for per 60s in the Blues. Obviously, expected goals against is also in the Blues. I think this is an upgrade on Henri Jokiharju at the end of the day, and I think that's a win. That is a win. It's the problem is we're kind of on year 3 now, I guess. I don't know, just trying to plug and play a player who's had good sheltered results and trying to transition that into top 4 results. Now, I'm sure if you asked Kevin Adams, do you think this player can play in your top 4? He's going to say no. He's probably going to say no, that's not the goal of this trade. This was not to find the Owen Power partner. I mean,
I think he already made that clear in the presser.
He made that pretty clear in the press conference. They're still looking for that guy. He talked about how players play with one another, and Henri Jokiharju was not a good partner for Owen Power. They just did not complement each other in terms of skill sets, and Jokiharju on his own is just not a very good player. Can Bernard Docker be a complement for Power? Maybe. The defensive results are positive in those sheltered minutes. If you give him a bigger role, maybe it works. And if it doesn't, oh well. It's a good, throw a dart at the wall, see what sticks. And, it's another body. So we'll see how he plays. I believe he has the Sabres. Well, not I believe. I know the Sabres will have his RFA rights at the end of the season. So you would imagine like this is a potential 7th body guy moving into next season. So it'll be interesting to see if he beats out Clifton by the end of the season for ice time. I think they're going to be looking for that Owen Power partner, and potentially I think there's a good chance they're going to be looking for that Bowen Byron or Rasmus, another partner for Rasmus Dahlin, given how they are pretty non-committal to Bowen Byram, I think, at this point in time. So if they're looking for those two, and then he beats out Connor Clifton for ice time, you're going to probably want a little bit more cap space or another body out of there. So maybe Clifton gets moved in the offseason. I don't know. We'll see. Like I said, good flyer to throw in, and I don't think it's a completely nothing piece to be a part of this trade. So, gone through all the details of this. Who do we think won the deal?
It's close. But I'm loyal to the crest. We won this trade.
That's tough. I don't know.
Okay, hold on. Before you answer.
Right now, I think we won the trade, but there is plenty of room for this to flip.
Last year, I basically hit the nail on the head. Not to pat myself on the back, but I pretty much hit the nail on the head. The Avalanche won that trade at the time through the end of that season. Middlestat was great for them. was phenomenal or was great in the first round of the playoffs. I mean, Nathan McKinnon said he was the best player in the Jets series and kind of tailed off towards the end of that Starry series, but he was great. But I said, he was going to be great at the start. The Sabres are looking to win this in the long term. And Casey Middlestead is not a Colorado Avalanche after today. He's a Boston Bruin.
Yep.
Sabres won that trade in the long term. Doesn't mean it was a perfect trade. We've had our qualms with Byram, but they won the deal. Today, I think, Dave, it's kind of the flip side of that, sort of. Like, the Sabres win that trade today. I think Norris is having the better season. He's the better player right now. It just comes down to, can Dylan Cozens return to form?
I mean, I go through my thought process now. It's like I kind of understand why the second round pick was added in, because Josh Norris probably is a better player right now. Bernard Docker is, the better defenseman. I guess it makes sense why we gave up the second round pick. The second round pick is kind of really influencing me. Like, I don't know. At the end of the day, I don't care that they gave up a second.
It's a second round pick. I mean, they could flip that for something, if that.
Yeah.
Honestly, that might decide it for a lot. Like, if this trade was Cozens, let's say this trade was Cozens, Gilbert, Norris, Bernard Docker. Who's winning that trade?
Probably. I'd say us, probably. But add in the second, it kind of changes my mind. Like, I think it's really even. I don't know. You know what? I'll just say until I really see Norris, play with us, play in a Sabres jersey, prove his worth, and I'm not doubting him at all. I think the Senators may have won this trade, but I mean, time will tell. Time will tell. I don't know. We'll see.
All right, Josh Norris, Buffalo Sabre.
You know what? I think Jonah was about to say it, but don't go look at the receipts of when they extended him. Don't go look what Jonah said about him.
Yeah, we were talking. We're going back and forth in our group chat today, and I was like, I don't know if anybody remembers. I don't know if I ever tweeted about it back then, but I was very critical of the extension at the time. I mean, yeah, Norris had 35 goals in 66 games, but you looked at the impacts. The impacts weren't all too impressive that season. He just had a really strong finishing season, and he got nearly $8 million. And I just remember being very critical of it. I called him like Victor Olofsson if he played center, it's way too harsh. And it's funny, I joked about it. I'm like, it's kind of like he's like Victor Olofsson if Victor Olofsson had good defensive impacts. But funny enough, Victor Olofsson's having a very strong two-way season because of course he is. Like, why wouldn't he? Why wouldn't he? I thought he was getting dealt today, too. I thought he was going to be in that Marchand trade because he missed. He just so happened to miss practice on deadline day, but he just so happened to be hurt. But it's funny. It's funny that it was Norris. Just not ever somebody I had like an agenda against. Like if it was like Cole Caulfield or something.
I was gonna say, yeah.
But it just someone I remember I was critical of him at the time. But I see the upside.
You bring it up Cole Caulfield. I remember the main reason you really never liked Caulfield was he was compared a lot to Cozens.
You know what? We're ending this today. It's over. It's done. For anybody that has been a long-time listener of this show, I grew to dislike the hell out of Cole Caulfield. Because
keep it a PG.
He had that playoff run in 2021. And everybody was like, oh my God, like Cole Caulfield, like why didn't the Sabres draft him? And it was like a year into Cozens' career. And like their numbers in the regular season weren't even that different. Anyways, grew to dislike Caulfield a lot after that. Took a lot of pride in the fact he got sent down to the AHL the next season. Then Cozens broke out in 22-23 and was by far the better player, higher stock. I remember after 22-23, we were talking about Dylan Cozens going second in a 2019 redraft. And it wasn't that crazy. It was by far, Jack Hughes number 1, and then it was basically Cozens versus Seider at 2.
The
So
hate watch is just
that was the hate.
insane.
That was the hate watch because then from that point it was like, all right, Cozens is better. Where's everybody? Where's everybody's takes now? But
Oh,
over time, Caulfield has proven to be the better player. So, and now Dylan Cozens is like, he's not a Buffalo Sabre. So, I have no more reason to hate Cole Caulfield, other than the
Wow.
fact he's a divisional rival for the Sabres. So,
That's a big identity change. I don't know.
it's a new era. As Christian said, it's a new era. Caulfield, still hate you, but it's not targeted hate. Congratulations. You won the war. You're better. You're a better man than me. You turned out to be better than Dylan Cozens for now. I mean, hey, honestly, Cozens still has, I think, the higher ceiling than Caulfield. We've seen that, but still, the targeted hate is over. Caulfield, you won. I waved the white flag.
And Jonah's favorite saying was, the best 40 goal scorer to never score 30 goals. He scored his 30th goal against
he scored
us.
30 goals. That's how you know it's poetic. This is
Yeah.
like the God. Do you remember the Lafreniere hate watches post Eichel summer? Like,
yeah.
we thought he was bad for so long, and then he became a good player. Had to wave the white flag on that.
Yep.
Similar to that. I'm eating my crow. I get it. Okay, I get it. He can stop.
I'm proud of you. That's a
Stop being so good.
That's character development right there.
I was gonna say that's big character development. Good for you.
I'll take over the hate watches from now on. Don't worry.
Like I said, and now we just shift focus to Lane Hut. Nah, I'm just kidding.
Oh, did you see the head fake at the
Honestly,
blue line?
that is crazy. I didn't even think about that today. Like that was such like a just so instrumental in like watching hockey like through the Sabres. Short. I mean, it was a short little tank. During 2021, and got themselves out of that conversation quickly. But it was still fun. It was fun to root against Caulfield and whatnot. I'll never forget the. It was when he got sent to the AHL. And Jay Fresh put out that card, and he was a 0% WAR percentile player. Funny.
You must have felt on top of the world.
I did. I really did. I felt so vindicated. Anyways,
I got
that's one of the things I'll remember about the Cozens, or saying goodbye to with the Cozens trade.
I did think about that today. I got one more thing before
this
you completely
guy with
move
the
off
one
this
more
trade.
thing.
I know, but I got one more thing. This is the Jerry Bagula coming out of me. I think the one thing that we have to acknowledge is we basically did take on more cap.
I was gonna. Well, okay,
and we did
especially
more cash.
I was gonna say, I'll give them credit, I suppose. They took on more. The average annual value is higher. Norris makes 7.9, Cozens makes 7.1, and also Josh Norris has $42.6 million in real cash remaining on his deal. Cozens did not have that much money left. So, actually, well, I don't know if Cozens actually might have more cash left, but the Sabres took on a deal that it's not like most of it was paid. They owe
the opposite.
They owe $9.5 million next year and $8.75 the year after. Like that's higher than his average annual value. So I'll give him. I can't say I give him credit, but it's like they don't deserve credit for that. But it's notable that they did it. That being said, if we want to finally move off of the trade, are we ready?
Mm-hmm.
Sure, we'll talk about it in the months to come.
I'm excited to watch him play tomorrow night.
Yeah,
or today,
cool.
Probably most people listening.
That's true.
Me too.
Norris will be in the lineup against the Panthers. Bernard Docker will not be. He still has to do the whole immigration process. Josh Norris is American, so he's already got that sorted out. So it should be fun to watch. I don't know when we'll talk next, but it'll be after that game. Maybe it's Sunday. I don't know. Maybe we wait till sometime next week. Definitely want to spread out our talking points now that the most interesting part of the season is over and we go into the March of death.
March down the dark hole once again.
So that's not all that the Sabres did today. Not even close. Not even in the week preceding. Um, let's start with the contracts. Actually, no. We'll start with the trades. Um, two other trades the Sabres made today. First, Nicolas Aube-Kubel, who we know one of the Sabres' main signings in the offseason, signing that we all had a lot of hope for. Obviously did not work out. He was playing for the Rochester Americans. He gets dealt to the New York Rangers in a 1-for-1 swap for Erik Brannstrom, another former Senator, funny enough, former Ottawa Senator, that is, who had been on the Vancouver Canucks to start this season and had been a part of the JT Miller trade. So he was in the Ranger. He was with the Rangers. I don't even think he suited up for a game with them. I could be wrong, but don't think he ever suited up. And now he finds himself in Buffalo. A guy who was a few seasons ago an analytical darling, like his impacts for the 22-23 season were ridiculous. Once upon a time, this guy was the main prospect in the Mark Stone trade to Vegas. Crazy how things like that age over time. It's likely it's not going to be anything sizable, but it's something that they can play on the NHL roster, and also he will probably not be picked up off waivers. He can be something for the Rochester Americans playoff run, especially considering Aube-Kubel was starting to be a big piece for them. Now they just load up even more on defense.
Yeah, he's reporting to the Amerks, Kevin said, so this isn't even really an NHL move, but if you look at some of his analytics, some of his underlyings, like Jonah said, he has some good metrics. He kind of seems to me like maybe a better Bryson. He's a small player, has better analytics than Bryson, but I mean clearly they value Bryson higher right now just since he's been with the team for so long.
Yeah, he has shockingly good metrics. It's like clearly like minutes play a factor here, but it's really good stuff. It makes you wonder. Like I almost look at him like is he like the Daniel Sprong of defensemen, where it's like guy scores, puts up good results, but like coaches just do not trust him.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's how I kind of look at him.
Jay Fresh's, he didn't like any of the AHL moves. He didn't really post any of his charts, but he did make a little post on describing each of them. I think he even said in that like good underlyings, but teams refuse to play him, or he just doesn't play that many minutes for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, hey, I get it. Small undersized defenseman. If that guy's not on your power play, it's kind of hard to find a prominent role for him. But hey, the Sabres. I'm actually sort of surprised they didn't call him up ahead of tomorrow's game, but I guess that goes to show that the forwards are the more sickly on the roster right now.
Well, it's good to have depth,
Yeah, it's good. It's a good sort of value move for Aube-Kubel. Just sucks. I mean, hey, like I said, we had a lot of hope for that at the time.
Yeah. That was one of your favorite moves.
Yeah, I thought it was one of his. I mean, the guy was. I think still it is like a time and place. Never didn't get off to the right foot, but it did not work out. So it is what it is, and you just move past it. It's an off-season failure. Hopefully, I don't know, Brannstrom turns into something here. Then we get to the other trade. Henri Jokiharju. They did finally find a suitor with minutes remaining in the trade deadline. Henri Jokiharju gets sent to the Boston Bruins, who had a very interesting day, in exchange for a 2026 fourth round pick.
I'm just glad he's not on the Sabres anymore. Let's put it
that
way.
I'm glad we got value out of him because he was not being re-signed in the offseason. I would have taken a fifth or a sixth. I don't care.
I would have taken future considerations. Honest to God. I like seriously.
Just get that man. Get him out of here.
It's done. I mean, you could tell. I mean, dude, it took this long. It took with minutes remaining in the deadline to a team
Yeah.
that is waving the white flag on the season and is just looking for bodies to find, find a suitor. So,
Yeah.
don't hate Henri Jokiharju, the person. It just was a player that, and once again, just his best stretch as a Sabre was within his first 20 games
Mhm.
5 years ago on the third pair.
Yeah.
Was it? I feel like it was longer than 5 years ago.
It was
It does
Kruger's.
feel long.
Well, it was late 2019. It was Kruger's first season that he got traded there. So yeah, I mean, he peaked then and just did not ever progress. And unfortunately, was one of those players that the coaching staff continued to play up in the lineup. Spent an ungodly amount of time with Owen Power, and even Rasmus Dahlin got a good chunk of minutes with. Not that type of player. I'm sure a team can shelter him effectively on their third pair, but the Sabres never did that, and she just kind of wore out his welcome.
I was gonna say he overstayed his welcome. It's another offseason failure. He should not have been re-signed
Never,
this past
not
year.
once.
Should not have.
Worst move of the offseason.
Listen here,
Yeah.
buddy.
And worse than
You've
Sam Lafferty.
overstayed your welcome, and you need to get the hell out of here. Thanks
And
for nothing.
One of the big things with them, he contributed nothing to special teams. That was one of the things. Even when he was quote unquote in our top four, he contributed nothing to special teams.
He's a bottom pairing guy who,
Yeah.
in sheltered minutes, is a fine bottom pairing guy. But when
I don't even think he's fine. I think
you
it's
don't
he,
think so?
I think it's he could be fine.
He's had his moments. You got to give Lindy credit for actually scratching him. I mean, for healthy
True,
scratching him a
yeah.
lot this year. No other coaches has done that.
No,
with the
Granado
Sabres.
never scratched him. He was always playing.
I don't disagree. It like I said, these damn Finnish defense. The Sabre, we're stopping
It's
Finnish,
enough.
the right-handed defensemen that are Finnish influx. We're done. The last two have not gone well.
They've all been playing up the lineup. The last one was getting 27 minutes a night when he should have been on the second pair, and this one should have been getting scratched when he was playing with Owen Power.
At the end of the day, you won the trade, though. You won the Jokiharju
guess.
trade.
I
You
guess.
basically,
You won the
basically
trade.
kind of you swapped a second
I
for
guess.
a fourth. I don't care. Who cares?
Well, that too. I will say it is nice. He at least had a very nice finish with the Sabres with a game-winning goal, and it was a freaking snipe
Yeah.
for his literally last moment as a Sabre because he did not play a minute after that. I don't think.
How many Bruins fans went to Twitter, probably saw our tweet, and was like, "Oh my God, this guy could be something." Played in the Four Nations too.
Yep.
And he played with Middlestat. He could be something too.
Got a goal in I think his last 3 games, or maybe 2 of his last 3. He's
the
he's a
best
goal
stretches
scorer.
of his Sabres
Yeah.
tenure
The-
were
yeah,
his
the- he's
first
got-
20 games and his last 3 games.
He's got 2 goals in 3 games, but those 3 games are spread out over like 2 weeks because he got healthy scratched.
He'll be remembered as a drought defenseman.
Yep.
Put it that way.
He will be in trivia nights in
Yep.
Allentown 20 years from now.
Last thing about this trade, we gave the team props for taking on money in the Norris deal. However, they did not retain in this Jokiharju deal, which there was no reason not to. His contract's up at the end of the year. They didn't have to. Still got a 4th-round pick at full value, but still did not retain. And that means that the Buffalo Sabres have still not retained on a contract in a trade since Taylor Hall in 2021.
Is that a record? Is that like a league record? No, probably not. But that
Teams
is
that buy
crazy.
usually don't retain.
That is
But
true.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think that is a problem, especially where we've been at, and obviously we have a ton of cap. The only thing I'll say with this situation, the Bruins aren't making any pushes. Like I don't think they really care about their cap. That's
No.
the only thing I'll say.
All right. So those were the trades for the Sabres today and at the deadline. So in total, the Buffalo Sabres bring in Josh Norris, Jacob Bernard-Docker, Erik Brannstrom, and a 2026 fourth. Going out, Dylan Cozens, Henri Jokiharju, Dennis Gilbert, Nicolas Aube-Kubel, and a 2026 second-round pick. How do we feel about this deadline? Mission accomplished?
I would say mission more than accomplished, considering I thought they were going to do almost nothing besides trade Henri Jokiharju.
Is it like job actually accomplished, or is it like George Bush mission accomplished?
No, Jason Bottrill meme.
Jason Bottrill in the George Bush meme. Mission accomplished.
No, I think it was a welcome surprise deadline. I'm glad they got this deal done. I think it's good motivation for the offseason. I think it spells more to come. We just got to get through the rest of these games, but definitely more than happy with this deadline. No bad trades, no prospects. We got a hockey trade out of it. You sold off a UFA that we desperately needed to get rid of for a pick, and just a AHL move. I can't complain, especially where we sit in the standings. What were we expecting, Brad Marchand?
Yeah, I think it's a pleasant surprise. If I were to give him a grade, I'd probably give him like a B plus, like better than I thought. I mean, it was literally even the last 5 hours before the deadline when the trade hadn't happened. I was like, they're just not going to do anything. But he made some moves, and if you look at it from a whole, like Jonah just listed out, or like he tweeted, like it looks pretty good. I mean, pretty much the three players you got rid of were all kind of guys who are already on their way out. You kind of got rid of, players who probably didn't have a future with us, and I'm kind of happy those three aren't on the Sabres anymore. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, they definitely took three. They took two players off the roster that had just. It was time for both of them. It was time for one of them last season, and with Cozens, it just got to a point. It's time to go. We didn't touch on the last memory we're gonna have of Dylan Cozens not jumping into that scrum.
Yeah, him standing next to the net.
I'm just I'm never one to like get on the Sabres a lot for that, but Brandon Hagel is like jumping over the top of the net to throw punches at Rasmus Dahlin, and Cozens is just skating by, or just kind of skating outside of it. And supposedly, a month ago when the Tage Thompson, Stefan Noesen thing happened, the player meeting was supposedly led by him and Alex Tuck. So, and you see that, and just I don't know. I don't want to tear down Dylan Cozens. Like, it's just that sort of stuff. It sucks. That's going to be the last memory of him here.
I mean, it sucks. There's really no good memories of his last year in total.
2 years.
Last 2
really.
Years. I can't really remember anything.
Yeah,
no.
It's been a rough 2 years. Like I said, I wish nothing but the best for him. I hope he finds his game, but I hope he doesn't do too well. Not too well, but I hope he bounces back.
I agree. So, last bit of house cleaning here. The Sabres had two UFAs that, there was talk, maybe they would go at the deadline. There wasn't a lot of insider trade talk, so you knew there was probably a good chance the Sabres were going to hammer something out, and they did. Jason Zucker and Jordan Greenway are both here to stay for the next 2 seasons. Jordan Greenway receiving a 2-year, $4 million AAV contract extension, and Jason Zucker signing today, trade deadline day, 2 years, $4.75 million per season. Thoughts on those two signings?
I think I'm happy with both the signings. I'm hearing a lot of people say overpay, whatever. Hey, got to hit the cap floor somehow. Got to get to that floor. But this team has been the youngest team in hockey for a really long time. You can't go into next season being the youngest team in hockey. I think Jordan Greenway brings something extremely rare of his game to the Buffalo Sabres. And I think Jason Zucker, outside of being, honestly, I think they should give him an A, first of all. I think he should be one of the captains in that room next year, just by the way he carries himself in the locker room. Anytime I'm listening to post games, he's always one of the guys when he's healthy, he's always one of the guys taking questions from the media. He's very quick to defend his team. I think it was a great move. And I like the term, 2 years, not a long commitment, more of a, I guess you can call it a bridge deal, but um, it does lead me to other questions like if you have five of your top six kind of set, where do you put Zach Benson if you bring another person in? Do you trade someone else? Honestly, I'm preparing myself for another one of our younger guys getting traded out, and it might be someone we don't expect, which kind of scares me, but also at the same time, what we have now isn't working, so I'm open to anything. But I like both the signings. I'm glad both of them are back. It's big for the vibes. They're loyal to the crest. They wanted to be here. Adam said they wanted to be here. What else could you ask for?
I think you bring up a good point with Benson. It does kind of put him in a weird spot because I think ideally where he's at in his career, he probably would fit best on that third line. And now, I mean, we were just talking about they need to make another top six edition. Right now, he's probably sliding into the fourth line again, which is I don't know if that's the best use for Zach Benson, but it's where the team building's at. Um, these two moves, it locks up your third line going into the next 2 years, pretty much. McLeod, Greenway, and Zucker. They've been effective together, and I think I like bringing both of them back. I think Greenway is probably an overpay. No other team would probably have to pay that much for him, but he was gonna get a raise, and um, you bring something that the rest of your lineup really doesn't have. Good forward checker. Um, you know, brings the grit. He's good on the penalty kill, even though somehow his penalty kill metrics are like awful, which I don't really understand that. But I like it. And I think at times he does show some offensive prowess. But at the end of the day, he's a forechecker. And Zucker, I was actually pleasantly surprised with that deal. I didn't want anything over 2 years. And honestly, usually when you're extending guys, you're kind of giving them a raise. I was expecting like $6 million, and I thought paying him and Greenway for $10 million combined would kind of be crazy for two third line players. But the fact we got him for 4.75, which I mean, it's less than he made this year, and he had a career year this year. That was a pleasant surprise for me. So I like both the moves. I've stated how I'm nervous that Zucker is eventually going to hit that age curve, but at this dollar amount and at that term, I think I'm for it.
Yeah, I'm not worried about it. The cap's going up to probably 90 something $1 million, 95 million. And
I think it's supposed to be over
he's
100 in like 3 years.
And also at the same time, you got to start taking a chance on some vets, not like super old vets, but like early mid 30s. You got to mix them in there a little bit. Um, Someone with experience. God, I sound like such an old head saying all that. We got to bring in Ryan Reeves. We got to bring in, is Nick Delorier available?
You are the old head of the pod.
I mean,
Not
I
technically,
gotta
but
speak.
you talk like it.
I gotta speak for an audience. All right.
I feel you.
It
Last
matters
thing before Jonah gets in, Zucker's good on the power play too, and our
You
power
need
play
that guy out
sucks.
there.
So
Don't disagree. Kevin Adams made a decision today, and it was, I think, the first time, seriously venturing into the vets, the proven over the youngsters. He has not done that in his entire tenure. Today he chose to trade the 24-year-old center that he extended and signed a Greenway's 26, 27, and Zucker's 33. So it's different. He chose to build out his bottom six and take a risk in his top six. It it's definitely a bit of a change in philosophy, and hopefully we see more of it. And yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what they do with that forward group because even if Jack Quinn goes, and it still leaves room for Zach Benson to find his fit. I think a lot of mock lineups are going to have Jordan Greenway as a fourth liner. And I don't think you pay $4 million per season to have him on your fourth line.
I don't think the Sabres view him as a fourth liner.
I don't think they do either. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do there. But you know what? You figure it out as you go. As of right now, because that conversation is going to revolve around Zach Benson. If he's a fourth line player for now, you hope he doesn't, kind of lower his own ceiling, or at least they don't lower his ceiling by doing that. But I don't know. We'll talk about it in the offseason. There's a lot of roster building conversations to have over the next few months. Today's about the trade. The trade's.
You might be getting the Payne Krebs treatment.
That was my thought too.
Yeah.
I hope they don't go down that road.
Neither
personally.
do
I hope they at least give him power play. I still think he's a first power play unit guy. I think, and probably not right now. When you're talking about the power play, Norris probably goes on that right flank and Peterka goes to the bumper. Maybe.
Just take him off the power play. He sucks on the power play. Let's be real. At least on the bumper, or at least on the one hash. So maybe in the bumper.
Yeah, bro cannot take a one-timer to save his life. That is Josh Norris's spot now.
Okay, first of all, probably bad timing to say that. He did kind of roof one against the Sharks.
It is.
Yeah.
It was really. It was.
But still, man, I've seen so many situations.
It's not as good as Josh Norris or Yuri Kulik. So
there have been so many situations where
I don't disagree.
Yeah, just saying.
So that's the Sabres deadline.
Yes.
Crazy. Much crazier than I would have
crazy day.
Than I would have ever expected, man. Crazy. I saw I think it was 23 Sabres tweeted out it's crazy a year ago. All three of these guys were Sabres, and it was Skinner, it was Cozens, and it was Middlestat. And it's look, man, no playoff success out of those three. So it's tough to really get sad about it, but it is crazy. Those were core players on your team a year ago.
It's big shakeups. Some big shakeups. As much as Adams has failed, he has made some big shakeups.
Yeah. Much needed shakeups.
It's
not enough, but still something.
It's another failed era for the Sabres. Not as bad as the previous one, and a lot of the same players are still around, but the core that they wanted to build, it started with Dylan Cozens. It did not end up working out, and we find ourselves here. So, I think that's going to do it for this one. Thank you very much for listening. We'll talk to you guys next time. Don't know if that'll be Sunday. If Josh Norris has a really great game tomorrow, stuff to talk about, maybe we'll hop on. Or we'll just see you sometime next week. If you want to follow us on Twitter, you can follow us at the Sabre Report. Also on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at the Sabre Report. If you listen to this on YouTube, thank you very much for listening. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. If you want updates for the pod, you can follow us at Sabre Report Pod. Go give our friends over at the Buffalo Sports Talk podcast a listen. Knee deep in off-season content. Just released an episode today. Kind of a weird day to kind of sneak in an NFL an episode. A lot going on in the NHL world. But no, they do great stuff. Obviously, the DK Metcalf stuff is at the top of the docket. Bill's still looking for that pass rusher. And obviously, Terrell Bernard was resigned today. And, free agency for the NFL is getting close. So,
coming up.
One last shout out. Shout out to you guys. We did hit 8K followers on Twitter today. Got that
blessed. Hashtag blessed.
It was a great day. It's a great day. Following continues to grow. Good day. Good week. Even if it ended, even if it's bittersweet.
Yeah. You got to enjoy the highs always. When the Sabres have a good game, when they're blowing a team out, Every once in a while in a bad season, you gotta enjoy the peaks.
And this is, this is one of those episodes. This is always one of my favorites because there's no docket, there's no notes. You just come on here and you talk.
Yep.
And that was a good episode.
Pure rambling by the three of us.
Side note, a first round pick for Scott Lawton. Like the Leafs really did that.
They did it again.
Come on, man.
It's the Foligno trade, but worse.
We're gonna unpack the trade deadline.
At least it wasn't us.
Episode.
Mhm.
Thank God, yeah. And he's having a better season than it's like it wouldn't have been. It's not as bad as it would have been last year, but good God. All right, we won't keep you. Oh, JP is.
I just want to say, even though this season's pretty much over, there's no story points going into the rest of the season other than evaluating for next year. We'll still be covering them. We'll still be talking to them once or twice a week. So our coverage will not stop. But if a lot of people check out, don't blame you. This is a miserable part of the season for us.
We'll see everybody at the draft. See you guys later.
Yeah.
See you guys July 1st. Bye.
No, but thank you guys for tuning in. Be sure to tell us what you thought about this trade in the comments below on YouTube or on Twitter, anywhere.
Even if you're a Senators fan.
Yeah, be sure to let us know.
Call us out.
It's
Call us idiots.
It's a crossroads for them because, we saw Brady Tkachuk crying. Josh Norris was kind of a similar player for them as Cozens was to us. He was there at the start of the rebuild. So
yeah, and maybe we'll have a Q&A soon. We're kind of overdue for one, and
definitely,
especially post-trade deadline.
Yeah, with the way this season's going. So stay tuned for all that. If you're with us along the way, thanks for sticking around. And if not, see everybody in a few months when the news picks up again. All right, everybody. We'll see you guys later. Take care. And as always, go Sabres.
Go Sabres.
Go Sabres.